Ever wondered what would happen if a crimson whirlwind of supernatural fury clashed with the spectral queen commanding the undead?
Hey, yeah, it's quite the image.
Today, we're plunging into that very thought experiment. We're pitting Bloodrayne, the Dhampir agent with that lethal edge, against Sylvanas Windrunner, the Banshee Queen.
The arrows fly with death itself, as you say.
Exactly. It might sound, well, unlikely maybe.
Oh, God.
But these two anti-heroines, they share this darkness and a pretty formidable tactical mind. Makes for a really intriguing clash.
Yeah, what's compelling right away is how their journeys, though, drastically different in origin.
Right.
They've both ended up in positions of significant power.
Right.
And influence, yeah. But through very different means. One's sort of a solitary force of nature.
And the other leads legions.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Bloodrayne, born of human and vampire, armed with those iconic arm blades and that relentless thirst for vengeance. She steps into the arena against Sylvanas, former hero of Silvermoon, tragically transformed into a banshee, wielding dark magic, commanding the undead. So our mission in this deep dive is basically to dissect their strengths, their vulnerabilities, and, the strategies they might actually use if they ever met on a battlefield.
We've got a good amount of info to work with.
Yeah, we've gathered a wealth of information. Histories, abilities, combat styles.
Yep.
We're going to see how they might theoretically collide.
And looking closer, it's not just about, raw power versus magic.
No.
It's also a study in their motivations, right? How those drive their actions and inform their tactics.
Okay, so let's start there then. Let's look at what forged these formidable figures. Bloodrayne's origin. It's steeped in tragedy.
Definitely.
Born 1915 from a violent union, human mother, vampire father, Kagan. Her life took a dark turn when Kagan murdered her mother.
Brutal.
Yeah. And that single act ignited this lifelong vendetta against all vampires. It's a burning desire for retribution that just fuels everything she does.
That immediate visceral loss is really fundamental to understanding Rain.
Right.
It shaped her into this relentless, almost single-minded force. Her motivation is a very direct line, from that trauma to her actions now.
No, Sylvanas. Her story is a far more complex tapestry of loss, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. She's the celebrated hero,
Yep.
Ranger General of Silvermoon, protector of her people.
Right, a real figurehead.
But her life was brutally extinguished by Arthas Menethil, who then did the ultimate horror, resurrected her as a banshee, forced her into servitude.
It's awful.
And though she eventually broke free, her initial focus was also revenge, like Rain's, but against Arthas.
But it changed over time.
Yeah, her journey evolved. It became about survival, yes, but also the, advancement of her people, the Forsaken, even if the path she chose often kind of skirted moral boundaries. Her story is one of profound loss, compounded by the burden of leadership in undeath.
That evolution is key then.
Definitely. Sylvanas' motivations shifted from purely personal vengeance to the well-being of a group, which led to those morally ambiguous choices and a strategic depth that comes from leadership. It's a really significant contrast to Rain's more personal crusade.
Absolutely. Now let's dive into their arsenals. Bloodrayne is all about getting, up close and personal.
Very much so.
Her signature weapons are those, wickedly sharp twin arm blades, perfect for tearing through supernatural threats.
Can't picture her without them.
Right. She also carries a harpoon for ranged stuff and impaling. Pretty gruesome, but effective. And then there are her Dhampir guns.
Ah, yes, the guns.
Being a Dhampir half-vampire gives her this unique physiology. These guns are apparently quite effective, even with, limited ammo.
That combination of melee and ranged options, even if the ranged is a bit limited, it speaks to a versatility born of necessity, right?
Yeah.
She's not solely reliant on brute force.
Yeah.
She has tools for different distances.
Right. And her Dhampir nature also means she needs to feed on blood, which isn't just a trope.
No, it's functional.
It's how she heals and sustains herself. Makes her incredibly resilient in a fight. But she also possesses some really remarkable supernatural abilities.
Like aura vision.
Yeah, aura vision. Grants her enhanced senses, lets her see in the dark, detect environmental details, track fast-moving targets.
And dilated perception.
That lets her process events at a slowed pace, gives her those lightning-fast reactions, and she's got super speed. Moves way quicker than a normal human.
These heightened senses and temporal manipulation abilities give her a crucial advantage, especially in anticipating and reacting. Makes her exceptionally difficult to surprise or outmaneuver up close.
And when things get really hairy, she can unleash blood rage and blood fury.
Right. boosting speed and damage.
Significantly.
Yeah.
But it comes at a cost. Leaves her vulnerable once the fury subsides. She also has Ghost Feed, which lets her rapidly heal by targeting specific opponents.
So it's a combat style defined by kind of high-risk, high-reward bursts of incredible offense.
Yeah.
Balanced by periods where she might be more susceptible to counterattacks.
Okay, now let's look at Sylvanas. Her weaponry. Master archer in life.
And those skills only got sharper in Undeath.
Her black arrows are particularly nasty. Enchanted projectiles. They don't just do immediate damage.
No, they have that damage over time effect. Debilitating.
And they can even reanimate corpses to serve her. As dark minions. Talk about battlefield control.
This immediately shows her strength, right? Ranged combat and manipulating the battlefield. Creating extra threats, applying sustained pressure. It's smart.
Then she commands her Banshee powers. The Haunting Wave unleashes a phalanx of spectral banshees.
Deals damage, potentially disorients enemies. Crowd control.
And her Banshee form allows her to become intangible, phase through physical attacks, obstacles.
An incredible defensive tool. And for mobility, too.
And let's not forget the chilling Banshee scream, capable of sowing fear, doubt, panic.
So these powers lean heavily into both direct damage and psychological manipulation. It gives her a really multifaceted approach. And that intangibility. Huge defensive edge against purely physical attacks, like Rain's main offense.
And beyond her Banshee stuff in archery, she also wields shadow and death magic.
Right. The Wailing Arrow.
Potent, explosive projectile, silences and damages enemies in an area. That silence could be key.
Potentially, yeah. And Life Drain. Lets her siphon vital essence from opponents to heal herself. Similar mechanic to Rain's feeding, in a way.
True. And while she did wield Maw-empowered abilities later on, for a fair comparison, we should probably focus on her core abilities before all that, yeah.
Agreed. Even without those later power-ups, her command of shadow and death magic provides substantial options, complementing her archery and Banshee powers. Gives her a wide range of tactical choices.
And we absolutely cannot overlook her strategic intellect and leadership.
Crucial point.
Remember, she was Ranger General, later War Chief of the Horde. She has this deep understanding of warfare, commanding armies, political maneuvering. That tactical mind is a weapon itself.
Precisely. Her experience provides a level of foresight and adaptability that a more solitary combatant like Rain might not possess to the same degree.
Okay, so let's break down their core strengths and potential weaknesses. For Bloodrayne, advantages are pretty clear. Formidable close-quarters combat.
Unmatched, really.
Exceptional agility and speed lets her close distances rapidly. The self-healing from feeding, and those enhanced senses and reaction times. She's a force in a direct engagement.
However, she does have vulnerabilities. Sunlight is still a major threat, right?
Big one.
Her reliance on feeding, while a strength, could be a liability if there's no blood source handy. And while traditional anti-vampire stuff might not work, certain environments, like large bodies of water, have historically hindered her.
Okay.
And her aura vision, while great, could be anticipated by a cunning opponent. Someone could exploit her aggressive tendencies, maybe track her because of the aura.
Interesting points. Now for Sylvanas, strengths, powerful ranged attacks, area denial.
Command over undead minions to harass and impede.
That invaluable, intangible Banshee form for evasion and repositioning.
Potent shadow magic and that sharp strategic mind. Years of leadership experience.
But weaknesses.
Well, her undead form isn't invulnerable. Significant physical trauma can still take her down.
Right.
And while her past connection to her soul fragment and the jailer isn't really relevant for this hypothetical, emotional manipulation could potentially be a weakness, given her history.
Ah, good point.
And abilities that rely on silence or magic effects might be countered by opponents with specific defenses or, resistances.
All right, let's set the stage. Hypothetical clash. Picture a neutral arena, maybe varied terrain. Open spaces for ranged, tighter corridors for close combat.
Good mix.
What's the likely initial approach for each?
Rain. With her focus on melee and that incredible speed, she'd almost certainly try to close the distance immediately.
Makes sense.
Her aura vision would be vital for tracking Sylvanas, even through illusions or stealth. Dilated perception helps her react to that initial ranged assault.
She wants to get in close where her blades are deadliest, so Sylvanas' strategy.
Maintain distance. That's priority one. Use black arrows, haunting wave, wailing arrow.
Yeah.
Create a dangerous zone. Slow Rain's advance, deal damage.
And Banshee form.
Crucial for evading Rain's initial high-speed attacks. Let Sylvanas reposition, continue the ranged assault, and summoning undead minions could serve as a buffer, slow Rain down, maybe give her targets to feed on, which could backfire if Sylvanas plans for it.
So it's a classic dynamic, isn't it? Gap closing versus maintaining distance. What are some critical tactical considerations here?
Well, number one is probably the effectiveness of Rain's speed and agility against Sylvanas' range, barrage, and potential summons. Can she close the distance before taking too much damage?
Yeah.
Conversely, Sylvanas' vulnerability in prolonged close combat. If Rain does get in close, can Sylvanas withstand that kind of onslaught?
And environment matters too. You mentioned sunlight.
Hugely. Presence of sunlight severely weakens Rain, potentially decides the fight right there. And then there's just the unpredictable nature of magic versus sheer physical force and honed reflexes. Adds another layer.
Okay, considering all this, who might have the edge, at least initially? Let's look at factors favoring each. For Bloodrayne,
Her unparalleled close quarters burst damage. That speed, those perception abilities, huge assets for closing the gap, creating openings. If she can consistently get within striking distance, she's a massive threat.
and for Sylvanas?
Superior ranged capabilities.
Yeah.
That's a substantial advantage for controlling the engagement zone. Haunting Wave denies Rain areas. Banshee form is vital defense against Rain's ferocity. And that Wailing Arrow, the silencing effect is particularly interesting. If it can disrupt Rain's vampiric abilities even for a moment, that could create a critical window.
Okay, so informed speculation time, likely outcome.
Sounds incredibly close.
It really does. The battle would likely be fierce. Could swing either way. If Rain can consistently overcome the ranged advantage, maybe capitalize when Banshee form is down. Her close quarters dominance and self-healing might let her prevail.
She needs to endure that opening barrage.
Exactly. Find those openings.
But on the other hand, Sylvanas' potent ranged attacks, her space control with summons and AoE spells, and that crucial defense and mobility from intangibility, they give her significant advantages.
Plus the strategy.
Plus the strategic acumen. She could definitely exploit weaknesses in Rain's approach, especially if environmentals like sunlight or water are in play. It wouldn't be easy for either of them. Not at all.
This is fascinating. So in essence, we have this brutal close-range specialist, Bloodrayne, pitted against a highly strategic ranged combatant with formidable magic, Sylvanas.
Yeah.
It really underscores the different ways power can manifest, doesn't it? And the unique challenges each style presents.
Exactly. And this kind of thought experiment lets us appreciate the nuances of their individual strengths and, how those might interact in a direct fight.
Absolutely. And on that note, here's a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. What other elements, beyond their core abilities and the immediate battlefield, might significantly influence the outcome?
Good question.
Could the presence of allies tip the scales? Maybe a specific artifact with unique properties, or even psychological warfare tailored to their individual traumas. Could that play a decisive role?
Lots to think about there.
It's definitely worth pondering how those less obvious factors could add another layer of complexity to this battle of shadows and crimson. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.